Hello, everyone. Welcome to King Po Myers and welcome to King Po Myers King Month. We are starting off this month with our friend from the UK, read by Beth. Beth, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. So, let's just jump right in. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your love of King. What have you been reading? Tell us your story.
So I'm 24. I currently go to university. I study criminology and criminal psychology. I only started really getting into King about 2 years ago now. Um, I read The Colorado Kid, and I actually enjoyed it. I know not a lot of people like The Colorado Kid, but I think because it is my introduction to King, it was an easy book to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I'm someone that has grown up with horror and I've watched a lot of Stephen King adaptations, but I'd never actually read a King book. And so I was a bit confused why I'd never had picked one up. So I picked that up. And then ever since then, I've been reading King and become obsessed with the way he writes and the way he tells stories. So that's just where I'm at now, 2 years later.
Nice. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I literally just picked up Colorado Kid the other day. I My first King was Joyland, so it's like part of that crime
Yeah.
series that he did. Later just came out, and I'm really excited to read that. Um so far you've been reading for 2 years. You said off camera that you read roughly 20 of his
Mhm.
books. Let's get right into it. Your top five. You have an amazing list. Starting at number five, we have Salem's Lot. My number one. It's just vampire greatness.
So many people find it so dumb though. And
What?
that's what I know, it blows my mind. I was recently in a group that were doing a read of it. I wasn't reading it because I'd already read it, but I wanted to see people's opinions on it. And so many people just said it was such a dumb vampire book and that there's so many better vampire books out there now. And yeah, okay, maybe there is, but I thought it was so scary. And it's the only King book that I've read that scared me.
Wow. What about it scared you?
Um, I'm okay, so it's partly to do with the book and the circumstances. So I was reading it one night here at my boyfriend's, and I was reading like one a specific scene about the vampires. Um, I think it is when they were going into the house to investigate, like in the basement area,
Mm-hmm.
and my boyfriend's mum started screaming in her sleep.
Oh Jesus.
And we couldn't figure out what it was to begin with, and I was terrified. And then he went upstairs and realised it was his mum screaming. And then after that, whenever I was reading that book at night, I had to have my boyfriend come to the toilet with me because it was a mixture of that happening, but then also reading the scary parts in a book that just made it so scary for me.
Yeah, I would say that would add a little bit to the terror of reading, especially Salem's Lot. For me, Salem's Lot has, I mean, obviously Stephen King has created some amazing, shocking scenes. But the
Mhm.
one that really shocked me and slash broke my heart is when they were, I think it may have been the basement scene, but the vampires took all the boards out and the doctor fell. That broke my heart because I love that character.
Yeah, I did.
And that was just the worst.
I don't know how he does it. Like with King, there's no limits. He'll just do what he wants to do, and he won't be afraid to kill someone off. And I think that's why his work is so well perceived when you're reading it, because you never know what's going to happen. He's
Mhm.
not predictable. So when I was reading that in Salem's Lot, I was just like, oh my god, like there's no chill. He'll just do anything.
Yeah, that was a very brutal death
Yeah,
to a really nice character.
yeah.
Um, so Salem's Lot is your number five. Number four, I have not read. So please psych me up for this because I actually got The Regulators and Desperation, the combo
Yes.
cover, which is really sexy. But
Oh,
you
I
have
have those. They're
it's
so
so
nice.
beautiful.
Yeah.
What is Desperation about? Why does it pack that punch for you?
So it's really hard to say what Desperation is about, really. So it's basically about different characters in this book that are all going through the same area at different points. So that at the beginning you have a couple that, I think it says that on the back, they're going there, and as soon as they reach this certain border area, there's this sheriff that will pull them over,
Hmm.
and they got arrested for something and got taken back, and then they find out that this sheriff is absolutely crazy and nobody lives in this town,
Hmm.
and all these characters end up getting to know each other because they all end up in the same jail.
Okay.
And the entire time you're reading this book, like there's so much going on, but I don't want to say any spoilers. So the entire time I was reading this book, it was just going like 80 miles an hour, and I had no idea what was going on. I think I read it in 3 days, and I think it's about
Wow.
700 pages long. But
Damn,
I
Beth.
couldn't put it down because it was it was just crazy because nothing was being explained. Like you learn in the end like what was going on, but it wasn't in the sense that you were reading it and you were confused. You were just reading it and wanting to know why what was happening. And I mean there's a lot of brutal things in that book as well. But it's completely like you were on like a drug trip or something.
Hmm.
Because everything is just going on and you just want to know why. And I just can't explain it. It's just so good, and I don't really hear people talk about Desperation a lot,
No, not
um,
really.
but it's absolutely fantastic, and I really do. It just deserves so much praise than what I do see, and I think it would make such a good TV show if done properly.
I mean, right now it seems like King's getting all of his stuff done,
Yeah,
so it's a possibility.
yeah,
Now, I have not read Desperation, but what is its connection, or is there even a connection with the regulators? Because he pulls something really cute. I don't know if just so the viewers know, Desperation and Regulators has this, were I think one right after the other, and
yeah,
both books kind of come together, the original editions, and create this one big picture.
yeah.
Desperation, he writes under his name, Stephen King, but with the Regulators, he did something cute, and he does it with Bachman, his original pen name.
Hmm.
Is there a connection, or do you?
Yeah, so they're basically parallel. How do you
Mhm.
say that word?
Parallel?
Parallel. Yeah, that's it. Universes. So I think this is what I didn't like. So I read Desperation first, and then I read The Regulators. And so the characters in the book are the exact same. They're the same characters, but the relationship with the characters has been changed. So there was a couple in was it a couple? No, it was brother and sister, but in Desperation, and then they were husband and wife in The Regulators.
Hmm.
So I couldn't differentiate between that. I couldn't take that apart. So I was thinking this brother and sister were in a relationship together.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously that was very weird in my head anyway. But I didn't really enjoy The Regulators, and I don't know whether that's because they were the same characters for me. I kind of wish that they were different characters so it wouldn't get confusing.
Hmm.
Um, so I could have read if I read the Regulators first, then maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed Desperation as much. So it's hard to tell in that sense.
Hmm.
Um, but I just wish that because everything that goes on is completely mental again. So they're
Hmm.
both mental in that sense. But I just wish the characters were different so you could like switch off from each story and they would be different. Whereas you're constantly comparing like both books because they're the same characters, if that makes any sense.
That's very bizarre.
It
I
is.
I mean, I don't know if you ever watched the show, but it sounded somewhat like American Horror Story.
Yeah.
I Hmm.
See, that's what I struggle with. I'm like, maybe if I read the Regulators first, I wouldn't hype Desperation as much as I do, because I would have been attached to the characters in a different story.
Do you know which one came
It's
out
just,
first?
I think Desperation came out first.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, but I know a lot of people prefer the Regulators over Desperation.
Oh, good God. Now I don't know which one to read first. And after you explaining that, I do not think I'm going to be reading these back to back. I think I'm going to have to give it some time.
Yeah, that's the problem. I read mine back to back.
Oh. God damn it, King. And it sucks because have you began your journey to the Dark Tower?
No, I got it for Christmas and it's sitting over there. Actually, yeah, I do have King books with me. I have my Dark Tower series, so I've got that. I want to finish a load of books I'm reading at the moment, and then what I want to do is I want to read them one after the other. I want to read them all in one go
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like if I take a break, I'm going to forget what's going on.
Um, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of every single Dark Tower book, he does give you a synopsis of what's been going on. So
Oh, that's really handy.
I know I have a buddy of mine who like I hate that. I hate when authors do that. I'm like, I don't have a scary good memory. I like that you kind of
Yes,
hold my hand and tell me the story again.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm currently on book 5. I'm taking a small hiatus doing the Mr. Mercedes trilogy.
How
But
are you finding it?
oh, it's amazing.
Is it? That's all I hear, but I've not read much fantasy before. That's why it scares me a little bit.
It's so king because it's not fantasy, but it is fantasy.
Yeah.
Um, not all the books hit a high note for me.
Hmm.
I have gone at it with a couple of fellow King fans about our opinions on some of the books, mainly book number 3.
Okay.
Um, I think at the end of the day, I think I will enjoy it, but I guess I tend to like a little bit more classic fantasy,
Hmm.
as your posters behind you suggest. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Patrick Rothfuss, King Killer Chronicles. That's creme de
That's,
la creme for
I
me.
was saying that to my boyfriend the other day. Actually, I was saying I wish fantasy books were written how older books are, because I'm currently reading Lord of the Rings at the moment, and I'm just in love with the way it's written, the way it's told, and you don't see that now. I mean, fantasy now is very different to what it was. I mean, I know there's a lot of young adult fantasy in that now, but I recently read a fantasy book called Ninth House, and I absolutely hated it. And I think that's because I prefer older fantasy. I prefer the way they tell things. It feels more personal, I
Hmm.
think, and it just grips you. And but I'm absolutely loving Fellowship of the Ring, um, and I just read The Hobbit as well, and it just makes me want to keep reading them. And I don't want them to finish because I know there's not books like that these days.
I Name of the Wind. Please read Name of the Wind.
Who's that by?
Patrick Rothfuss.
Okay, you're gonna have
It,
to probably send me this after because I'm gonna forget.
I will absolutely send you it.
Okay.
I absolutely love Name of the Wind. It's a trilogy. He's done 2 of the books. His last book was released 10 years ago. His fans are a little annoyed slash antsy right now, dying for the other book. But Name of the Wind is my creme de la creme. Just, but back to King. Thank you for telling me about Desperation. And the small note that I want to mention, I was told that the Regulators has something to do with Dark Tower.
I
So
think someone did say that actually,
good
but
on you.
I think it went over my head when they told me that, because when I was reading that I didn't know anything about the Dark Tower, so it just goes over my head.
Yeah, I stopped reading. I've had to stop reading the Dark Tower series so I could read other books so I could get the full picture.
Yeah.
It's insane. Number 3, The Stand.
Oh, I love that book so much.
I had an emotional hangover after that book.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I put it off for so long. I know why I did, because the size of it. And
It is
I think,
intimidating.
yeah, I think for me, because this is a very, very unpopular opinion, so I didn't like it. And yeah, yeah. And that's obviously like 1,200 pages. And so I was worried about reading The Stand and feeling like I was wasting my time again.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's why it took me so long to read. But I only read 40 pages a day, so I could read books alongside it and not get too attached, even though I did get attached.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, I just can't explain how good that book is. Like, I could have read so much more. He could have written so much more, and I would have read it. I mean, I just love that book, and I just can't explain why it's so good.
I mean, what's amazing is The Stand that we've read is the uncut edition. I own the
Yeah,
original edition, and it's like 700 pages. I'm like, and I haven't done a side by side. Like, what the
yeah,
hell did you cut out? Or I'm sorry,
yeah,
put in, because
yeah,
I think like everything with like Trash Can Man, I think that was added. Um, there were chapters in The Stand where he just talks about people around the world, and
yeah.
little boy falls down a well. Well,
I would be. See. I kind of want to read the uncut version, no, the cut version now, to see if it does all fit, because I think everything that was put in that book, it just flowed well together. And I feel like if I then read the cut version, I'd be like, okay, no, this doesn't make sense. This needs to be here. Um, but it's just so good. And some of the characters, because it's such a long book, there's such good character development, and there's also bad character development. But oh, I just love that book, and I just can't explain why I love it so much, especially as it was a bit too real in some parts, with obviously
mhm.
everything that is going on in the world right now. Um, but yeah, I just really hope this TV show does start getting a bit better. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna have to make my own TV show.
It's a limited series, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know how many episodes it's supposed to be?
I think 9. I don't think they're all out in the US yet. I mean, we've only had 2 episodes released so far in the UK, so I think there is 9. But I'm seeing so many divided opinions on it, and I do agree with both sides of it. So,
If I ever were to watch it, I think I'm gonna watch the '90s version.
mhm,
Um, yeah, it has some of that '90s humor, some of that '90s CGI and all that crap, but apparently it's very true.
mhm.
Um, you, I'm now so curious, Beth. You, you, you didn't like it?
No, I know. Whenever I have to say anything like that, if I say it in a YouTube video or if I say it on Instagram, I always have to put a disclaimer, because I just know so many people do not like that opinion. And I have had a lot of people like get defensive, and that's not what I want, obviously. Like, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion,
Absolutely.
but
And no defensive here. I'm just
no, no,
so
yeah,
curious
yeah,
because it's Pennywise, it's the
yeah.
kids, it's just didn't gel with you.
So I liked the kids. So I did get attached to them. So when I did finish it, I was a bit like, oh, okay, now what? But I mean, for me, I think it was because obviously it was a bit back and forth and all that jazz. But I felt like when I was reading a chapter and I was like, okay, right, now we're gonna get to a next bit, you then go back because you have to then read 4 other characters' POV, what they're
Mhm.
doing in that certain point, and I was just like, "No." I and then obviously there's a certain scene near the end that I just
Oh, I think I know what scene.
yeah, and
The
then
scene.
yeah, and then, there was so many scenes with I've forgotten his name. I've forgotten
Ben?
his name.
Beth? Richie?
No,
Eddie?
no,
Um, Bill?
no,
Probably the one that I'm missing. Stan.
no. He was the one that ended up working at a library, was it?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. The hell? Oh, come on. The one kid I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, there was so many scenes of him that it made me really sad with some of the things that happened. So I didn't gel with it because of those scenes as well. And also I didn't like the way King tried to give Pennywise a backstory and kind of a sort of little redemption bit during the middle of it.
Mhm.
I didn't really like that either. Um, yeah, I can understand why people like it, for the themes in it and things like that, and I will never shit on anyone for
Mike
having
Mike
that
Hanlon.
opinion. Pardon?
Mike Hanlon is the
Yes,
character.
that's it. I loved Mike, and I just felt really bad for him a lot of the time. But yeah, I won't ever shit on anyone for having that opinion and liking it. It's just I don't.
That's
I just
fine.
don't.
Did you like Pennywise the character?
Yeah, I did. I did like him as a character. I just I think with it as well, I didn't get scared, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's so scary," and all this. I was just waiting for something to happen, and I don't ever really feel like that happened for me.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Be- because while I it versus the stand has always been the debate even
mhm,
before I was a big reader. I've always heard this debate. So when I finally read the stand, I was like, okay, I can finally chime in. For me personally, I will go with it,
mhm,
but Randall Flagg stole my heart. I think he is an all-time great villain.
mhm.
Though I still love Pennywise, Randy Flagg is just
See, that's interesting because Amy on Instagram, Derry's Library, I think her name is,
mm,
she she loves it. Like it is her favorite, and she hated The Stand. So
hmm.
we're the opposite. Whereas I loved The Stand, she didn't like it, yet she loved it, and I hated it. So I think it's really interesting where there's like obviously reading is so subjective, and I just find it so interesting that what I loved someone else doesn't, and what someone else loved I don't. See, I think that's just interesting. It makes for good conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Um, now for your number two, The Shining.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. I think The Shining is a good place to start with The King if you've not really read much King because it's not long, it's not massive. It's a good amount, and I think the characters in it are just so lovable. Well, some are anyway. For me,
Yeah.
I love Danny. I love
Yes.
Danny, and Wendy. I loved Wendy in the books. I mean, her in the films was a different story, basically. Uh,
Stanley
but
Kubrick, damn you.
yeah, yeah, because she never acted after that. That actress.
Really?
Yeah, he was so nasty to her apparently. Apparently she was very like exposed and forced to do things and it just mentally broke her.
That's horrible.
Yeah, because with Danny, the young actor in it, they made sure he didn't see any of the scary scenes.
Hmm.
Like they made sure that he didn't see any, and the act scene actually, that actress didn't know that was going to happen. So her acting in that is real.
What the?
I know. I know. When I found that out, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, Mr. Kubrick has directed some amazing movies, but he
Yeah.
would not survive well in today's day and age.
No.
They would fire his ass almost immediately.
Yeah.
But back to the classic King. Why is this your number two?
Uh, oh, it's such a good question. So for me, it's whenever anyone mentions King to me, I automatically think The Shining. And that's because I think it was my third King read, and it was one I couldn't put down. So I read The Colorado Kid, and that was my first. And I was like, okay, this is fine. Then I read It as my second one. And obviously, I really didn't vibe with that. So then I read The Shining and it saved me because, not in that sense. I mean, if I hadn't have picked up The Shining, I don't think I would have read another King book. So The Shining really redeemed King for me because there wasn't any unnecessary parts in it. I really liked the hedge animals. I thought that was a good concept. And it was easier for me to read because I'd seen The Shining before.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what to expect. But the book just had so many added elements in it. Like there was so much backstory of
Mm,
them before they went to the hotel, and then while they were at the hotel, things that were happening that we don't see in film. And I mean, it also had the explanation of what The Shining actually was because they don't really talk about that much in the film. So I think I loved the aspect. I loved Dick Halloran as a
hmm.
character. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. And I loved how it ended in the book as well. I won't give any spoilers in case nobody's read it, but it's so different to the film ending. And
Yes.
I just enjoyed it. I thought it was such a good book and a good concept. And so I just loved it.
I do agree. It's just what for me personally, that book has been hyped up my entire life.
Hmm.
Um, Once again, Simpsons did it. Every single, I feel like, TV show or whatever has made the jokes. They've made the reference. So when I finally read it, I think it was like 2 years ago, I was
Oh,
like, this is over 25 years of build up.
yeah,
Let's see what you got. And I'm like, it's good. It's a
yeah,
really good book. I don't know where it would be in my rankings. Like I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it, but
yeah.
after all that time, I was like, yeah,
It
it's
was too hyped for you.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
that overhype kind of killed it for me. That's why most King fans will probably want to kill me, but I prefer Doctor Sleep.
Oh, I love Doctor Sleep.
I thought
Um,
Doctor Sleep,
yeah,
one, I think it's one of the ballsiest things anyone's ever done. You take the greatest ghost story of all time and you say, I'm going to give it a sequel.
yeah.
King, what are you doing? Like,
A lot of people didn't like it.
I thought it was amazing. I loved
Hmm.
seeing Danny kind of battling with that dark side of
Yeah,
his father. I loved the characters. I liked the top hat woman. I thought Doctor Sleep was unbelievable.
yeah, I did. I thought it was phenomenal. Can't even get my words out today. Phenomenal. Did you watch the film adaptation?
Not yet, but I did just get HBO Max, so I think that will be
Yeah,
on
so
soon.
it's done so well. It's adapted perfectly. It's such a good adaptation. It really is. And I know it didn't get a lot of promo when it came out either, but it is fantastic.
And you have Obi-Wan as Danny, and I'm like, oh, good God, perfect casting.
I've never seen Star Wars, so I I know. I've seen one of them, but yeah, I've never really watched Star Wars. So
Can I ask
when
which one? Which one did you see?
the Scythe, the Sith, the Revenge of the
Revenge of the Sith?
yeah, that one.
Very out of order, but at least you saw one of my favorites. You've
I did like it, to be fair. I just haven't really bothered. I feel.
I have rewatched the movies, The Mandalorian. I read the books. Like I am all about that Star Wars lore. I mean, Star Wars. I mean, wait. I'm sorry. You have a Battlefront poster behind
That's
you.
that's
Do
my boyfriend.
mm, Yeah, Star Wars is just it is life for me.
Mm.
Um, sorry, I won't go on a Star Wars rant, but I truly do love it. Now for what we're really here for, the book that everyone seems to insult and me and Beth go, fuck you all. That is The Institute. The
Oh.
Institute was really special for me because it was the first King book that was ever released when I was a King fan. So it was like the first book I was hyped for. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So I got it soon after. I have a first edition, of course. I thought it was masterful storytelling. I thought I fell in love with these characters. The villains were horrible.
Mhm.
I thought the final battle was unbelievable. You had a bunch of shit happening in different times. And people are like, it was good. It was fine. Like, what were you reading?
When I see that, a piece of me dies when I hear someone say that. I saw someone post the Institute in their worst books read of 2020, and I was just so close to commenting on it and being like, why is the Institute in here?
How how is that?
I, I don't understand. Obviously, I know reading is subjective, we've gone over this, but Institute is probably one of the best recent King books he's written.
Yes.
It so there's so many good things about it. There was a missed opportunity. I don't know if you've read Firestarter.
Yes.
I wish they had used the shop from Firestarter in the Institute and they could have done like a little crossover with the same sort of people there. I thought that was a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. I purposely read Firestarter before the Institute because I'm like, I read the synopsis for the Institute. I'm like, he has to.
Yeah,
There has to be that link. And I'm like, King, what are you doing, buddy?
because I read the Institute and then I read Firestarter in the summer. Um, and as I was reading it, I was like, wow, there was such a missed opportunity here. Um, but I just, The Institute is one of those books that was so tense. It was so tense that it would make your heart race.
Yes.
Like, you literally were immersed in this book. You felt you were there, and you're just like, oh God, no, what is going to happen? And there were so many scenes in the book that was so tense. I remember that one specific scene when I was reading it, and my eyes were closing because I was so tired, and I was like, no, I physically cannot go to bed until I know what happens. Oh, there's so many good
Um,
characters as well.
yeah. I mean, I love how this isn't a spoiler, but in the beginning, you meet Tim and you set up his whole story, and then we just leave him. And
Yeah, I forgot about him.
as I'm reading it, I'm like, was that a misprint? Like, what the hell is going on? And then he comes in at the very end, and it's I don't understand how it is in people's like bottom kings.
Yeah, it was the way that they had. It was they had to start with Tim, and then obviously he came in at the end. That's I thought that was like really good, like sort of world building there. I thought it was so. It could have been predictable because you could have been like, oh, he's gonna get out and he's gonna find this or that, or they're gonna do this, but it wasn't.
Mhm.
The whole thing, I had no idea what was happening. And then when Tim was introduced again, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about him.
I mean, it is, I think, one of, if not the only book that like I didn't cry, but I got very emotional.
I cried. I cried.
I won't say what happened. I'll just say the
Yeah.
line and maybe you'll remember it. It was when Avery said, like, I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to have friends. And I was like,
You're gonna make me cry.
that
Still
was,
thinking about still thinking about it makes me emotional.
and much like a lot of, for me, King is the all-time greatest. But what I love about him is that he just builds the layers, and then when you hit that climax, it's just shit just goes down. Have you read Needful Things?
No, not yet.
Needful Things is like kind of is in my top 5,
Mm.
but just that you build it up and then that final battle or whatever, things are happening in different places all at the same time, and like you're going around. I feel like I was watching a TV show. It was just so intense.
Mm.
I don't know how people are bored. I really
I
don't.
do hear a lot of praise about Needful Things, um, and it's one I do own. So obviously, I want to get to it when I'm back with all my books.
With Needful Things, you can read it outright and you'll love it.
Mhm.
I happened to have some buddies at work who were King fans as well, and they were like, no, 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 no. Needful Things is the last thing you read. You need to read all his Castle Rock books. So Cujo, Dead Zone, Dark Half. I personally went through and read like all his short stories. You really need to know Castle Rock, because then when you read Needful Things, they're Easter eggs, but it
Yeah,
makes it so much more special.
yeah,
But yeah,
you've definitely hyped that one up for me.
I feel like it's gonna live up. It's Needful Things. Any last thing, anything else to say on the Institute to all those haters out there who say it was fine, you know?
You're all wrong, and I think you need to reread it.
I absolutely agree. Now,
I
Beth,
will mention actually,
yes,
I'm doing a read along for that in April.
I saw that you posted that, and
It's me just encouraging people to read it that haven't, because so many people I know have it sitting on their shelves. And I'm like, why have you not picked that up yet?
I, I, I felt the anger behind that. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I need everyone to read it.
um, so Beth, you and me have been talking for a couple of months, and just what you're reading, blah blah blah. But we've been kind of going back and forth on this one opinion, and that is Stephen King's The Outsider.
Oh dear.
Um, we are in very different camps, and I am
Yeah.
just, and just for our listeners, just so you know, this podcast is very spoiler oriented, so never be afraid to say anything. But we're getting into just full blown spoilers. I did read it after, I'm sorry, before the Bill Hodges trilogy. So uh, not the worst thing, but I absolutely loved it. I thought I loved the true crime meets paranormal. I love the characters. I'm currently watching the show on HBO. I just thought it was very dark, it was very uncomfortable, but I liked how you had this issue of there's no way in hell this guy didn't do it. Blood, DNA, sperm, everything is there. It had to be him. And then you had all this other evidence. And I was like, just these two warring parties, like, we have a video of him 100 miles away. He couldn't have done it. Tell me, outsider.
it's my it's I've read 22 King books, and it's my one from the bottom of
Mm-hmm.
the pile, I'm sorry to say.
All
Um,
good.
I really thought I was gonna love it. I really did, because I like that sort of thing. I like the murder, all that. So I was like, great, we're gonna have a really good story here. Because I have a couple of friends that The Outsider is they've read that, it's the first King book, and then they were like, right, I need to read more King book. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I had high hopes. So I was like, right, I'm gonna read the trilogy, then I'll read The Outsider. So I did that, and The Outsider just put me into the biggest reading slump ever. I
Really?
I just thought, because obviously end of watch, that's supernatural. So I knew The Outsider was going to have some sort of supernatural elements to it, but I was just reading it and I was just like, this is so bad. I was like, I just, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of I just thought it was so dumb in some parts, and I was just like, "This is too far for me." It was too
Hmm.
much of a mix. Um, but I can see why people like it because it is very similar to End of Watch, and I did love the End of Watch, but I think I wanted a bit more from The Outsider. I wanted it to be a bit more different. However, I love Holly as a character. She's one of my favorite King characters, and I know a lot of people hate her. I know
I
so
don't
many.
understand the hate for Holly. I'm not saying she's going to be in my top pantheon of King characters, but I think she's quirky and she's battling through a bunch
Yeah,
of stuff. Like, I have no issue with the character. I
I
have no
think
issue.
she's one of the women characters that Stephen King has wrote well, in my opinion, because he's obviously sometimes the way he writes women is a bit sexualized sometimes. Um, but Holly is a character. She's the character development she's had from the Bill Hodges trilogy, then into the Outsider. I just love that because she was this scared person,
Hmm.
and now she doesn't give a fuck,
Hmm.
you know. So I love that with her. I love her as a character. So yeah, she was the only thing I liked about the Outsider, basically. Um, but I do understand why people like it because I'm not really someone that reads a lot of supernatural stuff. So I think for me, it just felt very strange because it was obviously a normal murder and then it turned into this supernatural thing. So for me, I just didn't like that sort of structure, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Would you give the show a go around or
Yeah,
just
yeah, I would watch the show because this is off topic, but I hated the Handmaid's Tale book, but I absolutely love the show. So
really?
yeah,
I read that early last year, and while it wasn't, her style is very different in the sense like no one really talks, and when like her just the way that she writes is just very,
yeah.
very off-putting for me. But I felt like her story was so strong that it kind of pulled me through.
Mm. I
You like
just
the show?
Yeah, I love the show. For me, I just felt like the book, they didn't really explain a lot or say this has happened because of this, whereas the film, the show is done fantastically. It's everything is explained. You see a lot of things, and the show is just done really well. The book wasn't for me. Yeah, I read the sequel that came out, and I enjoyed that. So interesting.
Yeah, that is one that's on my bookshelf, but I haven't touched it yet.
I thought that was fantastic.
The second book.
Yeah, the Testaments.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll definitely try to check that one out. Um, did you say The Outsider was on the bottom of your king list?
No, it's at the bottom, and then it's the outsider. Sorry.
Oh, damn.
I actually have my 22 listed here if you want to hear them.
I actually would love to.
Right, so this is obviously going 1 to 22. So I've got The Institute, The Shining, The Stand, Desperation, Salem's Lot, Firestarter, Misery, Doctor Sleep, Mr. Mercedes, End of Watch, Cell, Pet Cemetery, Carrie, The Colorado Kid, Dolores Claiborne, Elevation, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, Finders Keepers, The Regulators, Revival, The Outsider, and then It.
Some very interesting positions. I love Finders Keepers. For
I,
me, it almost rivaled Mr. Mercedes, and Mr. Mercedes, whew.
mm, I, yeah, Mr. Mercedes is 5 star. That book is so good. For me, I think because so this is probably my own fault as well. So I read Mr. Mercedes, and then I accidentally started reading End of Watch. I got about
No.
70 pages in before I realised. And obviously, Mr. Mercedes and then End of Watch, those two books, they lead on together so well.
Hmm.
Like, End of Watch just led on so well, so I didn't realise. it wasn't until, because I hosted a read along for that, it wasn't until I realised people were reading Finders Keepers that I was reading the wrong one. So I then picked it up and I started reading it, and I was just so baffled by how the beginning was just so different and it was like a complete different
Hmm.
story as such. So I think that's why it threw me off a little. And I did get a little bit in places I was like, okay, can something happen now? But I did enjoy it. I think I gave it 4 stars,
Hmm.
I think. Um yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars. But I did then, because obviously the main character and that I liked. So for me, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I just feel like Mr. Mercedes and End of Watch linked better, and I think Finders Keepers could have been a standalone.
Okay.
So that was just
I don't
yeah,
know. King obviously loves writing about authors, and I think some people have said that it's kind of a cop out. You're just kind of writing about kind of stuff. Well, write what you know first is what I say.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I thought it was a really cool mystery. You know,
Hmm.
this clearly, I don't know if, yeah, that's he was a psycho.
Yeah.
Um, he kills this author because he hates the way he finished this trilogy
Hmm.
of books, and he gets the unprinted books, and it's like, oh my god, like this is like any fan's ultimate dream. Then he goes to jail for a long time, just wanting those books. Like I can't even, like, I would go mad.
Yeah, yeah.
It worked for me, and I can't put it above Mr. Mercedes, but it's like a 1A 1B for me.
I think for me it's because if I hadn't have accidentally started reading End of Watch, I think I would have been fine.
Hmm.
But because I started reading that, and then I felt like that linked more, and we weren't really talking about the Mr. Mercedes crimes that had happened, that I was confused, I
Hmm.
guess. So I think I've ruined it for myself.
You still give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, you still got something out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
um Another one that you said, you have Firestarter very high.
Yes, I do. I really enjoyed Firestarter, and I know a lot of people didn't enjoy it. They said the ending was bad, but I kind of thought the ending was a bit badass. I thought how she then entered the building and was like telling them all these things. I thought that was really good. I really liked that aspect of it, and I think because it obviously I read the Institute first, and then read that. I got such like vibes, like the Firestarter and Institute was so like vibey, like
Hmm.
they were similar in a sense that I enjoyed it because it just reminded me of the Institute, and I just liked the idea around it.
Hmm. I mean, for me, Firestarter is one of the few Kings that I thought was just fine. Like, I think it's a
Hmm.
perfectly good book. The shop was really cool.
Yeah.
Like I really like the characters, but like story wise, once again, I had nothing wrong with it. But it was like it was a fun
Hmm.
little book. I do prefer Carrie because I thought it's much more emotional.
Mm. See,
And
I enjoyed Carrie, um, but I know so many people that don't.
hmm, I
I
mean
see
it.
that a lot on Instagram where people would like rate Carrie really poorly.
I mean Carrie for me is just an absolute tragic story. I
Mm.
mean this
Yeah,
poor girl cannot win, and the book just made me very very sad.
yeah.
But at least for me, it generated some type of emotion. With Firestar, I'm like, okay, like you're kind of an X-Men. That's cool.
See, with Carrie as well, I liked how there was multimedia throughout it. So there was like interviews, there was newspaper articles
Yeah.
like that. I think that tied the story together really well.
Um, Before we sign off, Beth, what is your reading plan for this year? What are you planning? Are you planning to knock things out, or do you just kind of go day by day?
Well, I have got things that I usually try and plan my months. I have like this reading journal where I try to plan my months of reading. So I'm don't know when I'm going to be reading the Dark Tower series yet, but I am starting this year no matter what. Um, because I just want to start it and I said I would, so I have to. I'm going to definitely read The Green Mile this year. I did upload the King books I was going to read this year, but now that's kind of thrown me a bit off course because I'm away from my books because I'm in lockdown elsewhere, and I'm not entirely sure when we're going to be let out of lockdown to go back to my books. So for now, I don't really have many King books planned apart from the Green Mile and the Dark Tower series. I'll be reading later because that's out now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, apart from that, I haven't really got much planned until I'm reunited with all my other books. It's a sad story.
I feel like this is going to be tears of you just like opening the boxes and being like, my babies.
Yeah.
I know you're reading through Lord of the Rings right now. Do you plan on going into deeper Tolkien lore, like Silmarillion and the stuff that his son did, or?
Yeah, I do. I do want to read more by Tolkien because I'm really enjoying his writing style, and I've been reading them with Charlie on Instagram, Book Love and Vet. Uh, she reads King as well, so we've been reading those together, and we're both really enjoying them. So we'll probably read some more of them together as well.
Do you have one book that you're like, this year it's happening?
For me, no,
Okay.
because I only have one book that I'm dying to read this year, and that is, I love that I've forgotten the name of it. It's called White Big Teeth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a YA horror coming out, and it looks so good. It looks so good. So I'm excited to read that when that comes out.
Nice. King's book later comes out, or sorry, has just come out.
Yeah,
So that I'm gonna snack up. Get
yeah, yeah. Because I don't think it's going to be that long. I don't think.
no, it's no. Yeah, those crime books are pretty quick.
Yeah.
Have you read Joyland yet?
No, I haven't. That's in my flat as well. I know. It's a sad story.
When are you gonna be out of lockdown?
I don't know. I don't know. No idea.
Well, at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine and everything. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you get back to your books as soon as possible. I cannot wait to start hearing your reviews on Dark Tower because it's an interesting read.
I know a lot of people say if you read Gunslinger, you need to read the next one straight away, otherwise it's going to put you off. So,
I'm a strange minority, apparently. I love the first book.
oh, that's interesting.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And everyone has it as like their worst ranked Dark Tower. I'm like,
Yeah.
once again, it's the same thing with the Institute. Like, I don't know what you read. I thought it was a really fun adventure. It's nothing complicated. It's very straightforward, I felt. Why?
Well,
Oh,
I'll have to let you know my thoughts when I read it.
please do. I'm very, very excited to hear that. Um, where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, all at Read by Beth.
Excellent, excellent. And any last questions, comments, questions, comments, concerns? I'm a teacher. Sorry. Any last anything else you have for King or to say to the audience?
Read the Institute. That's all I'm gonna say.
I feel like you're gonna get an Institute tattoo at this point.
I know I've got one planned that I really want to get. I'm just saving up.
Okay. I need details. Like
So have you seen the paperback copy of the Institute?
the UK version with the boat.
Yeah. So there's the boat, which is the hardback, the blue one,
Mm-hmm.
but the paperback version they released, I think they came out in August. So they've got the institute in the background, and they've got a little boat
Yep,
coming through with it, and I kind of want to get that tattooed on
that's true
me.
fandom right there.
I just love that book so much.
Um, yeah, I've seen that edition and I got really annoyed. I do not understand why the UK gets all these sexy editions. Like the covers are so awesome, and we get like just a generic, like a bird. Like what the?
To be fair, I was confused by your copy of the Institute because it's on the back of a train, isn't it? And it looks like
Yes,
he's in a library, and
yes,
that just doesn't happen in the book. Obviously, he gets, on spoiler, he's on a train, but he's not in a library.
yeah. I think it was supposed to be like his bedroom, and them taking him away. So they kind of added
Oh,
like the fake bedroom that they made.
okay, that makes sense actually.
I think that's what they were going for. But
Yeah.
your edition is beautiful because like it's kind of like, I'm not an artist, I'm sorry, but just the way that like you see the boat and you see the institute in the background, it's like a
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful cover.
yeah. Well, maybe I have to sort out sending you a copy over.
Please.
I will do that because it's the Institute.
Because right now, I mean, I'm collecting all of like the original first editions slash
Oh,
book
yeah,
club editions,
yeah.
but now I'm beginning my UK edition because you guys have the sexiest editions, and I am so ungodly jealous.
Have you looked on Abe Books?
No.
I'm gonna have to give you that website. That website is amazing. That's how I collected my rainbow copies.
Okay.
So I'll send you that website, and you'll have to see if they've got some of our UK first editions or whatever on there.
Please do, because I
Yeah,
mean
I will.
I do love eBay, but
Yeah,
any avenue to get more of these
yeah,
editions.
yeah. Abe Books is fantastic for books.
Um to our lovely audience, thank you for listening. Um what what do you think about book Beth's top 5? Are you going to read The Institute? I feel like she will hunt you down if you don't. It's a good book. You King haters need to I just don't get it. It was heartwarming. It had adventure. It was horrible villains. Read the goddamn Institute. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope we can have you back at some point and just gush over maybe the Institute show. It-
Is it going to be a show or a film?
this is just pure speculation on my part.
Oh no, there's something in the works, isn't there?
I feel like someone is going to buy it as competition for Stranger Things. That's
Yeah,
always been my hypothesis.
because I googled the Institute a couple of months back and I clicked on news and it said it was in the works or something. I just don't want them to ruin it. That's my only concern.
Beth, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your top, well, 22. I mean, and hope to have you back.
Thanks for
Go
having me.
go follow her. She does oh, and you're also on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank you again, and we will see you next week, guys.